Welcome to For Better or For Court, Family Law in New Jersey.
Welcome back to For Better or For Court, Family Law in New Jersey with Ms. Alix Claps. Alix is a partner at Heyman and Fletcher and a certified matrimonial law attorney helping New Jersey families navigate divorce, custody, and complex family matters with clarity and care. I'm Evan Mack, and today we're talking about what to do after the judgment of divorce is entered. Alix will break down what clients should prepare for and how to protect themselves once the judgment is entered. Ms. Alix, my dear, welcome back.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm well. Like many people breathe that sigh of relief once the divorce is finalized, but there's still a lot to do afterwards. What are the first steps clients should take after receiving that final judgment?
It's true. We go into the courthouse or we're on the Zoom and we finalize the divorce. And, if we're in person, I give my client a hug and I say, bye, and I leave. And then my client has a whole checklist of things that they still need to do, some of which can involve me, like if we need to implement a qualified domestic relations order to divide up a retirement account, that can involve me. It doesn't have to, but it can. Or if there's a problem putting stuff into effect with, we set up a schedule and then we find out it doesn't work, we have to change something. Sometimes they come back to me, but a lot of this work is something that a client has to do on their own. They've got to trudge down to the bank and pull the ex-spouse's name off of what was the joint checking account. Or they have to do, they have to start interacting with their former spouse, the custody exchanges in a way that they haven't before. And a lot of it's good. A lot of it is, it's final. All the tension can go away and we can step into the next stage of our lives. But it's a lot for a person to have to deal with once they think they're kind of done dealing with stuff. It's a whole new stage.
But what about the financial task, like updating the accounts, beneficiaries, and insurance should be handled right away?
As much as you can think about you want to do right away, I think one of the easiest ways to deal with it is, all right, you get your life insurance renewal notice. Oh, I need to change my beneficiary on this, or I need to change my coverage amount because the MSA calls for me to have $500,000 in life insurance to secure my child support obligation, but I've only got $300,000. So I need to do that. As the stuff comes in, some things will make it easy for you because your health insurance will kick you off. What was your health insurance? They won't rest on that. They'll send you a letter saying, "Hey, you're terminated. You got divorced. Here's what you need to do to get new coverage." Your auto insurance will sometimes figure out that the driver's license address doesn't match the old garaging address and say, "You guys can't both be on the same policy anymore." So if you were still on the same policy, you're going to get a letter. The things you want to remember are things like, is there a power of attorney that your ex-spouse has over you, or not over you, but does your ex-spouse have power of attorney for you? Is the ex-spouse the person designated on your living will to make medical decisions for you? You should fix that. You should take those steps. Those are not really things that come into the divorce process because they're separate. But they are definitely part of that relationship that you once had that you no longer have.
How should someone approach implementing child support, alimony or parenting time schedules after the divorce?
As well as you can is the short answer. Nobody's going to be perfect. There are going to be hiccups. I try and encourage my clients to have a little grace in the first couple of weeks. There's an old saying from my theater days that once a fluke, twice is a note. So if somebody's a few minutes late one time, you let it go. If they're routinely 15 minutes late, then we got to figure out why. Is the time bad for traffic? Are they not getting out of work when they thought they would? Should we make a change because it's just not working? Things that financially, a lot of people in New Jersey pay alimony and child support through what's called probation. It's separate from when you think probation, you're thinking, law enforcement kind of areas. This is just a child support mechanism that we shorthand as probation. So that can do automatically deducting it from your paycheck, or you can pay directly, but they keep track of all of the disbursements and the deposits. So getting that set up is an annoying process. So the sooner you start it, the less of a gap there is, and the less you have to document how much you paid directly in the interim and let them screw it. The less you can let third parties screw things up for you, the better off you are.
But what happens if one party doesn't follow the terms of the final judgment, Alix?
If it goes beyond a mistake or a one-time thing, then you call me and we file what's called a motion to enforce litigants' rights. And we go back to the court and we say, "Judge, this person isn't doing what they were supposed to be doing. Make them do it and punish them in some way. They should be paying my attorney's fees because I shouldn't have had to come to court and get a second order to tell them what they already knew they needed to do. Or let's say we didn't have them set up to pay through probation initially. Well, let's say we had them paying child support directly or alimony directly, and they're not paying on time, or they're playing games or something. Then you say, Judge, I want it to be deducted from my ex-spouse's paycheck. I want that to happen automatically. And the court will do that. Like that's a kind of a no-brainer. If it gets really more substantial, they're not following orders, then you can get into kind of a more substantial enforcement mechanisms where, for example, maybe you're given limited power of attorney to sell the house that you guys were supposed to work together to sell, but one side's dragging their feet. So you ask, hey, Judge, I want limited power of attorney so I can effectuate the sale that we agreed to, that's in our MSA, but that this person isn't helping.
How should clients handle, refinancing, selling property, or transferring those titles like you were speaking about, after the divorce is complete?
There are, at least in New Jersey, there are some financial mortgage brokers who deal exclusively or primarily in post-divorce refinancing or purchases, because they know how to line things up. Because banks want to see, for example, if you are the spouse receiving alimony and you don't have a sufficient other source of income, if you don't have earned income sufficient to cover that mortgage obligation, they're going to want to see 6 months of alimony income coming in. Some of that you can set up in advance of the divorce. If there's interim support, temporary support being paid, you can line all that up. So you're going to, again, the way I talk about, you need to have all your documents, you need to document everything, you need to go back and get records for the divorce process. These are the sort of things you want to make sure you've got documentation and records for the post-divorce process so that you can get what you agreed to. Because a lot of MSAs will have a clause that if you're unable to refinance within 6 months, then the property has to be sold. And that's not usually everybody's first choice. There's also things that, there are in New Jersey, in order to avoid paying a transfer tax, a transfer incident to divorce has to happen within a certain amount of time. So there are some restrictions on you that you want to make sure you're aware of.
Well, what about the tax considerations that people need to keep in mind in their first year after divorce?
Well, most people, the first year after divorce is the first time they're going to file separate income tax returns in a long time. Everybody has to make sure they understand what their deductions are. If you've got children and you've made agreements about who's claiming whom in what year, you got to make sure you do that right. Because if you both claim a child, guess who's getting audited? Both of you. Both of you will get audited eventually if you both put your child's social security number on the return. Also, if you're a person who has to pay quarterly estimated income taxes because you're a 1099 employee or because the way that your income is set up, you want to make sure you're talking to your financial professional so that you're not over or underpaying in the next year. Things like that it's a whole new world. If you can give your tax professional a heads up this year that next year you're likely to get divorced and it's going to be a whole new ball game, they can help you set up for that.
So how can, co-parents smooth the transitions from temporary orders to long-term parenting arrangements?
Remember that there's no such thing as permanent when it comes to children. Long term is sort of about the philosophy of co-parenting. Long term is, all right, this is the kid's home base. This is the kind of schedule we know we want to have. And right now, this is the exact schedule we have. But sports seasons change. So suddenly a kid's playing ice hockey and they've got 10 p.m. ice time. And that's not going to make the transition that we were doing work. Or suddenly the kid's going to summer camp, a sleepaway camp. And that's going to screw up what plans we had for the summer. So trying to implement what you have, but with the understanding that it's going to change. You don't know how it's going to change because otherwise you could plan for it. You can't plan for it. They're kids. They're unpredictable. Situation's unpredictable. So sticking with the philosophy of co-parenting in an understanding way, having a little grace, listening to what your children's needs are, not always their wants too, but what their needs are, and communicating. I mean, honestly, the better communication system you can set up with your ex-spouse, the better. Some people can't communicate. Some people have to do it in writing only, and they have to use a third-party application to make sure nobody can pretend they didn't see the message or manipulate the messages in future documents. Like some people have high conflict post judgment co-parenting, but if you don't, keep it that way.
When should someone consider modifying support or custody after divorce? Kind of what qualifies as that changed circumstances in New Jersey?
For changed circumstances, there are sort of the two categories. There's the kind of life change where a parent moves. a child goes from preschool to elementary school, so suddenly their schedule is different. Maybe there's a bus involved, or they go from middle school to high school, and suddenly they can get themselves up and out of the house in the morning in a way that they couldn't when they were younger. And they don't want to be dragging their stuff back and forth from parent to parent with the same frequency that they used to. That's a lot of high school kids. It has nothing to do with how much or how little they love their parents. Teenagers don't like their parents, like period, full stop. But they're not going to love you any less if they don't want to have to move their stuff every Wednesday. If they want to, have a home base and really enjoy their time with you on a weekend, take that as a good sign that you have a healthy and strong relationship with your teenager, not a rejection, because it really isn't about you. It's about them and their needs. Financially, one party starts earning a lot more money, one party gets laid off and can't find a new job.
Mhm.
One party has another child in a new relationship. Those are all change circumstances that can impact the child support amount. There is a cost of living adjustment built in if you are having your child support run through probation in New Jersey. Most agreements do not consider the kind of general inflation or cost of living adjustment to be sufficient by itself for a recalculation. You could build that into your agreement, but ordinarily, I'm looking for like a 10% or greater difference in income, whether up or down, in order to call that a financial change of circumstance. That's my personal rule of thumb. Other attorneys may feel differently.
So what documentation should clients keep easily accessible in case an issue arises later?
Keep a couple of paycheck stubs handy at all times. You don't have to keep every one for a year, but if you've got two or three on hand, that way we can take a look at what deductions are coming out of your paychecks in a way that your tax statements aren't going to show me. Keep a couple of years of tax statements, 3 to 5 years are good, including the W-2s or the 1099s, the documents that help create your actual tax return, because the return gives me certain information, but not the same information that your W-2 gives me. So keep all that handy. Keep receipts for, if your child does travel soccer, keep those receipts for the tournaments and the hotel costs for the tournaments and the airfare for the tournaments. So we have an idea of what this child's lifestyle is costing you. Those are for different reasons you're keeping those things, but those are all things that are easier to hang on to than to have to recreate or refine later on.
So in your experience, what some common mistakes people make when moving into this post-divorce phase?
Honestly, one of the biggest mistakes is not redocumenting things when things are going well. If you're making adjustments because it makes sense for the kids, just somewhere have an email exchange setting down. You don't have to do a whole new consent order. You don't have to do a rider to your agreement. You can. If it's substantial, you definitely can. But have somewhere in writing, okay, the Wednesday at 5:30, that's not working. We're going to make it Wednesday at 6 o'clock from now on. Sound good? Yep, sounds great. Let's start at this date. That's enough. That's you have a clear sign that both of you are in agreement. It's in writing. You can use it later, because then nobody can come back and say, well, it was supposed to still be 5:30 and he's been late. He's been there at 6 o'clock, but it's supposed to be 5:30. No, but you agreed to the change. You can't then just unilaterally unagree to the change. And same way, I'm saying dad, but it doesn't matter. It could be either parent. Dad saying, well, I'm been coming at 6. It really should be 7, but I've been, leaving work early to make this happen, and I wanted to go back
Mhm.
to being 7, which is what we sort of loosely agreed on. No loosely. If you're agreeing, just agree clearly.
So how can someone rebuild their financial stability and long-term planning after divorce, Alex?
One of the best ways to do it is to meet with a financial professional, someone who can take a look at your assets, your earnings, your costs, your monthly expenses. During the divorce, you're going to spend a lot of time figuring out what your marital status quo was. That's important for the divorce. You kind of need to figure out what your ongoing status quo is as well. As part of the divorce, as you plan for that, but then also take a look at, all right, this is what I thought my monthly expenses were going to be. Maybe they're a little higher in some categories, they're a little lower in some other categories. Keep looking at your monthly budget so all right, I'm making it work. I'm not maybe saving right now, or I'm making it work. I've got some savings. Let me think ahead to my college contribution, which is coming down the line, and make those extra 529 deposits this year because I can. But use a financial professional. Meet with somebody. Make sure your retirement are on target. You may have a new target retirement date at the end of the day as a result of things like that.
And finally, what advice do you give clients who feel overwhelmed by the transition from married life to being newly independent?
It's totally overwhelming. I mean, you're not wrong to feel overwhelmed, but you don't have to make every decision at once. Take it step by step. Figure out one thing today. Figure out a different thing next week. Don't try and do it all at once, because that is absolutely overwhelming. It's like trying to figure out, you don't squish 4 years of college into one day of learning. It's a process. You got to figure out, all right, what's the most on fire thing? If it's on fire, I'm going to deal with it. If it's not on fire, I might think about it. I might let it marinate for a while, and then I can make those decisions. But you don't want to make decisions under the gun. You don't want to make decisions in a hurry just to have it done. It's the phrase, penny wise and pound foolish. No, do some research. Ask some people who've been there. I mean, you probably know somebody who's been through it. It doesn't mean their situation is going to be the same as yours, but you're going to get information about things you didn't think about emotionally, socially. How do you navigate the first holiday after you're divorced? It's different for everybody, because the holidays while you're married are different for everybody. You got to think about these things step by step. You don't have to make a decision about the 4th of July when you're making a decision about New Year's Eve. It's not the same thing.
Amazing. Thank you, Miss Alix.
Thank you.
So that's a wrap on today's episode on For Better or For Court. For more guidance on what to do after divorce, visit havenfletcher.com. Don't forget to subscribe and join us next time for more insights on navigating divorce or other family law matters.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.